I absolutely hate doing voiceovers, but I'm going to do that for you guys. Welcome back to the channel. Please like, subscribe, share, you know, the whole thing. It's all helpful. Trying to build this thing out, you know. How else can I afford my bi-monthly supply of M&Ms and hamburgers? So anyway, sit back, grab your favorite beverage or snack, and enjoy. Let's get crazy today. What do you say? Whoa, steady there. Steady as she goes. What's up there, Todd? I have your 2009 Fender Musical Instrument Corporation Blues Deluxe reissue. Cracked open on a bench. And just in time. Not a major catastrophe here, but she just needs a little bit of love. No evidence of the usual charring on the PCBs. But I'll walk you through something real quick. Maybe a few things. So, we're looking at some little debris at the bottom of this tube amp Dr. 6L6 GC, which, as you guessed, is not the original tube that shipped from the factory, which would, given this time frame, maybe a Fender labeled groove tubes. Sometimes you'll see a EH tube in there, but this guy, TAD, you'll see in these spacers here, these little discs with the little feet. You can see these, if I can get it to focus, these little feet, and what it's doing is, these little feet are making contact with the inside of this glass envelope, and it's supporting these structures, you know, the filaments, your cathodes, the plates, the whole thing. It's supporting all that stuff. And what it's doing is it's acting like a little spacers. They're contacting the glass, and it's keeping this centered inside of the tube. But through travel, moving the thing around, just life in general, this stuff starts to wear out. Now, is it coming from the bits that are contacting the glass envelope itself? Not sure. Is it coming from maybe the structures here? You can see where there are channels that have been cut out to accommodate these structures here to pass through. Got to see a little better angle there. Maybe from vibration, the sides of these little metal structures have shaved away at the internals here. And the result is this little powdery debris at the bottom of your envelope. And what's also happening, as a matter of fact, and not by coincidence, is these are mechanically noisy. So they're becoming microphonic. I have her in standby. I've had her cooking for about an hour and a half on a desk, running a signal through it. It has not shut down on me, however. But then again, you're a madman, and you probably put everything on 12. So let me kick her off of standby. This was biased cold, around 20 milliamps, which had the voltage up to a spicier 420 on the plates. Not spicy, but you know, maybe not so mild. So you can see that these are no longer perfectly matched. I did goose her up to a more respectable level of current, given the plate voltage on hand. So this, we're looking at around 55, maybe 60%, that's pushing it, of the max plate dissipation on these guys. Which for these tubes in this condition is kind of pushing it. And I'm trying to provoke an issue here, and it's not happening. But that's all right, because we can kind of see around the bend with what we're seeing. And so at first glance, and just taking a bit of a shallow dive, I would replace these two guys. You see that lovely blue glow of the electrons sort of bouncing around in the envelope in the vacuum of space. Your tube in the V1 position, this guy over here, is highly microphonic. And that really comes out to play when you're switching into the overdrive channel, which on this amp is delicious. Let's get a light on here. Just looking at the tube PCB, Let me put it back into standby so you're not getting the EMI and RF from the phone. Look at these little pyramids here. These are the projections that are created by the tube socket pins. They pass through the PCB material and then they kind of terminate on the foil side of this board. And some dude's been in here. How do I know? Well, because there's an inconsistent amount of solder from pin to pin. So maybe the dude was proactive. Maybe there was an issue before, but these are not nice looking joints. They're cloudy. So that's either you have a contaminated joint there. You have one that's been overheated. Maybe you mix old with new solder. This will happen. Or they've just been baking. So I would recommend cleaning these guys off and reflowing some fresh solder there. And then there, over on the V4 tube, the other 6L6, you'll see the same condition here. And there's a little bit of, there's some dried flux there. The prior tech, I'm not saying he did a bad job at all. I'm just saying, hey, that's what's there right now. We have a little bit of a arachnid action. A little fuzzy wuzzy. Not bad though. This thing's in great shape, man. So you've done a great job. And looking after this old girl. She needs a little TLC. Sometimes on the hot rods, the circuit board is constructed a bit differently in these amps, aside from some obvious circuit changes. Had I been trying to shine my lamp here in this position on one of the hot rod series amps, I guess this is still sort of in that family, but had I been doing that to your run-of-the-mill Deluxe or Blues Junior or whatever, then I would easily be able to see the rear side of the board coming through, sort of a photo negative. And I would see some evidence of yellowing around this low voltage supply. You have these 16-volt Zener diodes, which are forming your bipolar low voltage supply that's going to run your various op amps and relays and all that stuff. That's going to control your reverb and your like foot switching. It's going to control the function of the LEDs there. What we usually see here is charring. Is it going to happen on this one? Because I'm not seeing it there. It's not saying it's not on the back. Yes, it's going to happen. It's a matter of time. These caps, I haven't measured them yet, but I'm guessing that it would be a good time to change these. These are somewhat notorious for leaking. Fender, in their infinite wisdom, and despite the complaints of many in the field, continue to use the cheaper version of what is arguably a reputable cap company, but this has done them no favors with respect to their reputation. They've used like the cheapest version of these Illinois capacitors here, and they're notorious for leaking and causing issues. I'm not seeing any physical ejection on the anode end. That's a little crimped in here, the positive you would call it. So we're not seeing any physical leaking, but is there leaking within the shell of this sucker? I could almost guarantee it. And it looks like this guy, now that I've got an angle on it, is this starting to rupture, or is this the heat shrink wrapper on it? This is something I haven't really noticed before. So perhaps it's starting to bulge. If I get my micrometer out, then I can kind of gauge it. But that's putting a lot of work in. I'm not hearing any issues with respect to these failing at their jobs. What are their jobs? This is going to supply the plates with DC, smooth DC, hopefully, ripple-free. Somewhat ripple-free. A little bit of ripple is expected, but mostly. This will be supplying your phase inverter, most likely. Then you have your preamp stuff there. And had there been any sort of leaking, that would be somewhat easy to recognize via Some 120 hertz hum. And the background noise on this particular amp is far, far recessed in the background, even with these aged tubes. So pretty impressed with the condition of this girl, to be honest with you. Speaking of girls, look how sassy that is. Usually it's red. It's just clear red. But no, these girls, man, I don't know if they were having some kind of party on Friday or what. Look at that. Look at that. Getting crazy. So, anyway. Yeah. Now, I would say replace the 2 power tubes. Let's get this V1 12AX7 out of the way. Reflow the board here. And then we could likely call it a day. I'll reassess after that. Your pots are incredibly quiet. Only a fine layer of dust on the top. This is really fine dust. This is like love my carpet dust here, buddy. So what I would recommend is just when you're putting her up for the night, just lay a towel or something over, because, you know, dust being dust, it's going to fall down and it's going to go right into these. And boy, you start messing around with some cruddy contacts in your effects loop jacks, you're going to have a bad day at the show. So go ahead and check out your inputs, the whole thing. But yeah, for now, man, I say retube the power amp, grab a new 12AX7, a fresh one for the V1 position, and continue burning in and running a signal through her, seeing if we can maybe get her angry and instigate some sort of an issue so she can be reliable on stage. You're not going to have to worry about this stuff. Reflow the board. I can see some of these being an issue when they get hot. Like, look at this guy. You see that margin around the side right here? Sometimes these are just support pins and they're not connected to anything. But I believe the way these are oriented, this might be 1 and 8 there. This guy, I believe he has a trace. I'm just not getting good light. Sorry about that. I don't think this guy has a trace on him, but that's not something you want to see, really. So let's rock the tube in there and see if she pops up. We might have a break, and I suspect we may. That might have been the prevailing issue for the other guy. That's I do have my bias probe installed, so I'm gonna have to grab her a little further up. Let's see if we can see any rocking in the socket. Sorry, the only thing rocking is my hand. I'm gonna power her off in case I slip. There we go. I'm gonna turn her off here as well. Get her down. Yeah. Just freshly calibrated. I'm excited about that one. Where were we? Am I gonna have to get the stand out for this? Or can I zoom out a bit and just kind of anchor my hand here and not electrocute myself today? Not today. Yeah, get a little something on there. So I'm not seeing any movement there, but that's what I would typically see on like a lot of the Blues Juniors that come in. So the best thing I can do, to be honest with you, is get all this old stuff off of there, properly inspect it, and then let's reflow, see if we can clean these up. And that would be it for what I see now, you know, barring any sort of issues that crop up as I continue to let her cook here. On the other end of things, if you want to get proactive, then my recommendation would be what is now the gold standard for techs when dealing with these particular amps. My recommendation would be to remove these 2 boards. Then I could do a proper inspection on the business end of this main PCB and get this dropping resistor here for the foot switch supply, which burns the board. And then when these go tits up on the other side, that's a pain in the rectum with respect to cobbling up a jumper type situation. And then obviously replacing your Illinois filter caps with some nice F&Ts or mods. I think actually F&T just had a name change. Have to look at the spec sheets and see if they're still living up to the standard that they created. Changing out these two cement wire wound dropping resistors, getting these suckers off the board so they don't cook it any further. Obviously getting these Zehners off and putting some proper air gap there. And then with the boards out, I would also recommend changing out the screen grid resistors on the other sides of these, which I don't see fail often, but when they do, they fail really ugly. The plate load resistors on a phase inverter typically will open up and cause the amp to be completely silent. So I would change those out as well, along with the phase inverter coupling caps, which if they fail will ruin a show for you in a pair of tubes, if not a transformer there. And then that's about it for like immediacy, you know. So I'll put together a couple different price strategies for you, and we shall take it from there. Bye-bye.